Well, greetings, Robert Log. Thanks for hanging out with us today. The conversation we're going to have today is myth number 33. Now, if you've followed us for a while, you know a myth is something that property managers kind of believe to be true. But then when you tease it out a little bit and think it through and really dive down in, maybe it's not quite as true as you thought it might be. And there's a lot of them. We're on number 33, and it goes like this. Property managers don't deserve to have a big renewal fee when the tenant decides to stay, right? Well, I've been doing training for 15 years, and it's astounding to me how many property managers actually don't think that they deserve a renewal fee. And in this video, we're going to kind of turn that inside out and make sure by the end of the video that you really do believe that you deserve a big renewal fee. And we're going to describe how to convince your owners of that so that you can make more money in this business. So the problem we wrestle with is we don't really do anything, or at least the owner's perception is that we don't do anything to earn a renewal fee. Many managers tell me they kind of don't do anything to get her into earn a renewal fee. The tenant just decides to stay, and I understand that. But so the question is, where is the justification for earning a big renewal fee? Now, let's kind of examine this. It is human nature to resist paying someone when they don't do anything. In other words, when people have the impression that their property manager doesn't have to do anything, then it's just normal human nature to say, if you don't do anything, you shouldn't be paid anything. And I'm going to describe to you in the next 6 or 8 minutes the argument for a strong renewal fee. Because at the end of this, I want you to be convinced that you deserve a good renewal fee, and then how to explain it to an owner and get them to embrace the idea that you deserve a big renewal fee. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, well, thanks for hanging with us. Here's what the argument's going to start with. You need to think right thinking regarding renewal fees. What I want to convince you of is that we have in fact earned a big renewal fee. Because most of the problem is not with the owner. We had 35 years in the business. We charged a very big renewal fee. Tons of property managers do. But sometimes we have trouble with right thinking in our own head, and if we get our thinking right, then we can persuade our owners as to why a big renewal fee is the right thing to do. So let's start looking at things that we might say to an owner, things that are true. We don't have to make up any of this. It's true about property management to help them get over the hump to understand why we as a manager deserve a big renewal fee, okay? And there are 4 different ones. Let's walk them through. First of all, you say to the owner, Mr. Owner, the management fee you pay us doesn't begin to cover the overhead to stay open 12 months a year. In other words, the first argument for deserving a renewal fee is this. Mr. Owner, the $80 a month that you pay us is important, it's valuable, we really appreciate your business. But very candidly, it does not scratch the surface of covering the overhead that we have in order to keep our doors open. Think about it. Do the math yourself, because this will help you. If you sit down and scratch out what you pay for certain services, the $80 or $100 a month that an owner pays you is chump change compared to other services you pay. Here's an example. Betty and I have had a guy take care of our lawn for about 25 years. He charges us $225 a month. $225 a month when most owners pay $100 a month to have their property managed. Now, why is that? Is that because the lawn care guy has more education, more experience, more certifications? Maybe he's higher, maybe he's got some designations I don't know about, but we pay him $225 a month. Right now, today, I pay a management company $100 a month to manage my property. That is way out of balance. Betty is not able to do some things in the house at her age, so we have a cleaning person that comes in, and we pay him $75 a week to come in. Now, in 2 weeks, that's more money than I pay for a management company to take care of my house. That is crazy, totally out of balance. You need to have absolute confidence that that $80 a month that they pay you doesn't begin to cover the overhead. And by the way, you have to say this just right to an owner. You don't want to make them feel like you don't need them or want them. That would be counterproductive. So what you need to do is say, Mr. Owner, I love you. I love your account. We want to manage your property. That $80 a month is critical to us, but it doesn't begin to pay the overhead that it requires to keep our business open 12 months a year. It's just chump change. It's important to us, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't begin to cover the overhead. Okay, the management, okay, excuse me, the renewal fee is the catch-up. The end of that conversation, number one, is, Mr. Owner, you're $80 a month, right? But then the renewal fee is the catch-up. See, Mr. Owner, really and truly, and you have to believe this, by the way, because it is true, Mr. Owner, we would have to charge you $150 to $200 a month to cover the overhead that we have to incur to keep this business open 12 months a year. But nobody will pay $200 a month because the market is more in that $80 to $100, $120 a month. So the renewal fee is the catch-up on those fees. In other words, we bust our buns. We work really hard for 12 months in order to get enough money to pay for 12 months worth of property management. We can't get it in the management fee. It's not enough, chump change. But that renewal fee is a catch-up to that 12 months worth of hard work and good service, okay? So now let's go to argument number 2. Now remember, we're making arguments to the owner, okay? Number 2, you should reward your property manager for giving the tenant great service for 12 months and motivating them to stay. Mr. Owner, you want to incentivize your property manager for keeping a tenant there for a long period of time. Okay? Long-term tenants make you money. And if the manager does not have motivation, if you are not rewarding him for keeping a tenant in your property for a period of time, they might slack off and do a bad job. There are managers all over the town that don't give good maintenance service, don't return calls, don't have a receptionist, don't have a maintenance outline, don't have an emergency system in place, and are just bad managers. And those people are not, if they are not incentivized with a renewal fee to keep your tenant there for a long time, they might not. They might not give them great service. And you want to keep tenants. Tenants are very important. Number 3, if the property manager is not incentivized to keep a tenant, they may be tempted to move them out so they can earn another full month lease fee. In other words, Mr. Owner, some managers are not incentivized with a renewal fee. And so to them, whether the tenant moves or not is no big deal to them. Well, it's a very big deal to the owner because the owner is going to spend thousands of dollars when there's a vacancy. So, Mr. Owner, you want the manager to be incentivized to keep a tenant there because if there's not a big renewal fee to chase, then they'll get bad service and they won't care one way or the other whether or not that tenant stays. So you as a property manager need to describe to the owner what tenant retention is about and how hard you work at tenant retention because that's part of the justification of a renewal fee. Now think about this. We had tons of tenants that stayed 5, 10, 15, one that stayed 20 years. Think about managing that property for 10 or 15 years without renewal fees. Well, don't think about that. It'll depress you. Think about add up someday the renewal fees that you would get if you charged your owner a half a month or a full month renewal fee. A lot of managers do that. It's very, very, very workable. You have to be convinced and you have to convince your owner and have a plausible, intelligent, thought-out argument as to why a renewal fee makes good sense, okay? Let's move on to number 4. The tenant is the asset. It's amazing. I was in the business about 31, 32 years before I figured this out. Owners think the property is an asset, and in a sense it is, but it's also a money pit when it's vacant. I just kind of discovered along the way the tenant is the asset. A vacant house is a money pit. What keeps that from happening is a tenant staying in the house. So long-term occupancy, Mr. Owner, makes you money. It saves you money, okay? A vacant property is a money pit. The cost of a vacancy is very, very high. one of the things you need to do yourself is to sit down with an owner with a $1,200 a month rental property and say, if it goes vacant, here's what it's going to cost you in order to survive through that vacancy and get it re-rented. And when that number is $4,000, $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, those are real numbers if you'll sit down and do the math. What you realize is a $1,000 renewal fee or $800 renewal fee is chump change. Mr. Owner, you should be managing, or you should be motivating me or whatever property manager you choose to use. But a renewal fee is really important. You should be thrilled to pay a manager a renewal fee, because in renewing the tenant and giving good service for 12 months, they are saving you between $4,000, $6,000, and $8,000 the cost of a vacancy. Okay? You need to be convinced of that, and you need to be able to convince the owner of that. Now, keeping tenants in the property should be your highest priority, and paying a renewal fee is one of the parts of assuring that the tenant stays. Mr. Owner, I'm like every other property manager out there. I've got to pay my overhead, and $80 a month doesn't do it. The renewal fee motivates me to keep the tenant in the house and save you money. And in order to incentivize, it's got to be a renewal fee. So a renewal fee is critical to our business, and you, whether you use me or whoever you use, you should pay them a big renewal fee. In fact, you should pay them a month's rent. We don't charge that, but you should be willing to pay an owner or a manager a month's rent in order to keep a tenant another year. It's that critical that the manager is motivated to keep a tenant in the property. Well, let's move on. How much should that be? And this is where I get in trouble, because we're not supposed to recommend fees. And I'm not recommending fee. Every market is a little different. You got to figure it out for your market. But let's look at some of the parameters and talk about it. Many property managers out there, especially the brokerage firms who do sales, will get a full month's rent as a renewal fee. Don't be afraid of that number. That's a good number. That's probably the right number. Many people pay charge a half a month's rent. So wherever you find competition kind of drives this, you should talk to some other property managers and kind of see, where they fall in this whole area, and kind of decide how much your renewal fee should be. Okay, but it starts with right thinking. You got to get your own head straight and make your arguments to the owner before you do this. It's about getting you comfortable with it, because so many of you are charging $50 or $100 a month. Makes no sense at all. Okay, get some right thinking. You deserve a big renewal fee. You really do. You busted your buns for a year to make that tenant happy and want them to stay there. You deserve a big renewal fee. You have earned a big renewal fee, and others charge a renewal fee. So don't be afraid of it, okay? Right thinking includes things like owners are not surprised. Really, we signed up about 3,000 owners since, about 3,000 owners since we got in the business. And we had a half a month, 3/4 a month, a full month. We ranged in that area, and none of them were surprised. And we had owners stay with us 20 and 30 and 35 years. So they're not surprised when you tell them about a renewal fee, okay? Owners can be convinced. When they say, justify your renewal fee, that's the right question. It's okay. And you should have an answer for them, okay? If you get a little wheezy about it, if you want to make it easier, spread it out over the couple of months. One of the things we said to our owners is, we charge a month's renewal fee, and we spread it over 3 months, or we spread it over 4 months. So one of the lessons we learned along the way is you take a big number, if you break it down, it's more palatable to the owner. So you could say we get a month's renewal fee and we spread it out over 4 months. That really helps them swallow it, because a month's renewal fee is a big number, and it'll change your metrics in your management company like crazy. So the problem here so much is not with the owner. The problem is that you are not convinced that you deserve a renewal fee, okay? The problem is the manager isn't convinced. And if you're not convinced, then don't take one. But I think you should be convinced. I think that you deserve a big one, okay? Because you've earned it. You've earned it. Now, the other strategy we found is we tell stories of what owners do to entice their tenants to stay another year. Now, before we close out, here's what I mean by that. We started doing lease renewal processes in our later years 4 months before the lease renewed, because we knew if we could figure out a way to entice, coerce, bribe, call whatever you want, a tenant to stay another year, we got a big renewal fee and we didn't have any offsetting expense. So our renewal fees in our later years were $350,000 a year because we charged a big renewal fee when a tenant stayed because we earned it, we worked at it. So we would tell an owner what other owners have done to keep the tenant in the house. And we would go to the house and we would do a property visit, do kind of an inspection. And then we put a list together of some repairs or some improvements or some things we could do to keep the tenant there. And we shoot a whole video, you ought to watch it, on how to keep a tenant 20 years, because we did that. There's a lot of money in that for you because there's no offset to that renewal fee income. And so we would say to an owner to help them through this, let's entice the tenant to stay. We would go through and say you could clean carpets. We've had owners pressure wash garage floors, put up new ceiling fans, replace the microwave, install motion sensitive floodlights on the outside of the house, shampoo carpets, paint a couple of rooms, keep the rent the same. There's a lot of things owners have done in our company, Mr. Owner, to entice the tenant to stay another year or two. In fact, for my own rental properties, I just instructed my property manager that I'll leave the tenant, we got 2 leases coming up on my houses. I said, I'll keep the rent the same if they'll do a 12-month extension, and I'll reduce the rent $50 a month if they'll do a 24-month extension. You see, if you really get your head around the tenant as the asset, if you really begin morphing your thinking over to if you keep tenants, you'll keep owners, then you'll think through this, watch this video more than once. Make lists of reasons why you can entice the owner to keep the tenant there another year or two. If you become a student of tenant retention, you will convince yourself that you deserve a big renewal fee. You'll have lots of good arguments for convincing the owner of the same thing. Okay? Well, let's wrap this up. Here's how we can help. You can go to trainingpropertymanagers.com. On our products page, what we call the property management life cycle. It looks something like this. On that life cycle, you will find, under signing up owners, you will find strategies for how much to charge as a renewal fee, how to get the owner to accept the renewal fee, what are the arguments. You can get that right there. So the myth says property managers don't deserve a big renewal fee when tenants decide to stay, right? I think that's dead wrong. I think you should convince yourself, and I hope I have contributed to you convincing yourself that, or I can convince you, that you deserve a big renewal fee, and you can persuade your owners of the same. And we did it for years. We're not special. Every management company around charges half a month, full month, and you should too. Okay? Well, I hope that helps. We're here to turn on the revenue streams. Make sure you make a ton of money in this business. Make it as profitable as we did. Sell it out someday for a big chunk of money. Thanks for hanging out with us today.